Welcome to the Dome Discussions Podcast. Your top source for all things New Orleans Saints. Powered by four voices who live and breathe black and gold.
Touchdown!
Every hit, every play.
Welcome to the NFL.
Every moment. We've got it covered.
Let's go! Let's go! Go!
What's going on, Who Dat Nation? Appreciate everybody tuning into the Dome Discussions Podcast, part of Be in the Know Network. I'm Kyle Besson with Canal Street Chronicles.
I'm Nick Jennings with Canal Street Chronicles.
I'm Kelby Acarino with Canal Street Chronicles. Stop laughing.
I'm Drew Collins with Who Dat Dish.
All right, and the Saints just wrapped up preseason week 2 against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Spencer Rattler and the offense led a 2-minute and 38-second drive to tie it up 17-17 with 20 seconds left, or 27 seconds, I believe. And as the Jaguars were actually responding on their way to actually get a Cam Little field goal attempt, Jonas Sanker sealed it with an interception. And obviously there's no overtime in preseason. So the game ended 17-17. Spencer, yep, I already read all that. Yeah, so the game was a tie preseason. There was a lot to talk about from that game. We're going to go over the quarterbacks a little bit later. Is there anything base stats that you guys want to talk about? Maybe the Saints could have done better this game. What did you see from the Saints as a team that kind of impressed you or you wish you saw more of?
Well, as a team, I think the run game on both sides of the ball was very poor. The Saints, the ability to move the ball on the ground and the ability to stop the run on the defensive side of the ball. Those are two areas, more specifically the defensive side of the ball, that the Saints have really addressed this offseason. So seeing that be an area of concern is not really encouraging there. I also thought the tackling was putrid. I can't wait to see the numbers on how many missed tackles there were this game, let alone the first quarter. There were just so many. That first touchdown was a missed tackle there. Those are just areas that you don't want to see. Those are fundamental areas that you deal with all season long. Those are areas that we've seen the Saints deal with in practice. Concerns with practice, and the season with concerns in those areas last year. So just to see them be so prominent still doesn't give me much hope that they were able to get those fixed. So yeah, those are the things that I was kind of looking at from a team standpoint, because I know we'll get into more individual performances later.
Yeah, and on our last show, we actually talked about the run defense being a focus against this Jags running game because of Liam Cohen and the talent they have in the backfield. It was the starters against the backups for the first part of the game, and it showed that the Saints backups just are not ready to play in this league at times. It was definitely a worry throughout the game that they were just getting gashed. Once again, it just feels like Isaiah Foskey's being targeted in the run game. It feels like anyone can run that way and do really well. And on the other side, on the offense, I'm actually going to talk about two running backs as my players that I think did well, but for honestly not the greatest reasons. The run blocking was bad. I really don't put it up to those running backs. It was, as you said, the tackling was putrid. In my opinion, the run blocking was putrid. It was, they could not open the gaps. They kept getting beat. I mean, the running backs at times were fighting for their lives. It was really bad to see. And although I do think some of these players are backups, and that's why, and that's more on the defensive line, Kellen Moore's offensive scheme tends to struggle in its history when the run game is not there. So that's going to be a big focus this season, and it needs to be better.
I 100% agree with what you were saying about the blocking. It was not good. You saw Kendre Miller. He was doing multiple people miss every single time, and yet he was still only getting about 2 yards. But I really wanted to narrow it down to the interior. I thought the interior blocking was awful, especially in pass blocking too. You saw at the start, even when we had some of our starters, I get we had Torricelli Simpkins at center, but still, it was not great. Tyler Shuck was getting pressured left and right, not having a lot of time. And that's something you really need to see improved, especially with inexperienced quarterbacks playing.
And Simpkins, honestly, probably looked the best blocker in the interior.
He didn't look bad. I'm just saying he doesn't have that communication that McCoy has. I like Torricelli Simpkins. He just doesn't have that level of continuity with them all yet.
Yeah, and I mean, and even with like Raiden's, like he had a much better game than last week, that's for sure. But he was still getting beat, which is still worrisome. Maybe that improves with McCoy, but the fact Simpkins next to two veterans was probably the best interior blocker this game is kind of shocking.
And I kind of want to respond to you guys because I have the stats up right here because how the game started, you wouldn't believe this. So I'm going to go over the run defense so far. So the defense allowed 96 rushing yards, which obviously not great, but they averaged 3.7 yards a carry. So under that four, usually that four is what you want to go under. And they did hold them under. And then on the opposite side for the Saints rushing, they had 87 yards. Again, it's not the number you want to hear, but the 4.1 average where now you're above that four. So in terms of efficiency, it would look like the Saints were more efficient on the run game, but obviously this is a stat that you have to watch the game. Most likely, most of this comes from the second half of the game. We saw the Saints completely controlled it throughout there on the defensive side, shut out Jacksonville. They were scoreless in the second half, but it is something that I wanted to note that we were watching this game, especially to start with when Tyler Shuck was at quarterback and we couldn't run the ball for anything. And I love that you talked about the Kendre Miller because I'm sure we'll talk about Kendre Miller a little bit later, but that was somebody who was having to make something out of nothing because he would almost always make the first guy miss. But there was just you break one tackle and you gain a 2-yard gain because you have 3 other guys immediately to meet you at the line. But yeah, the Saints technically, while not leading in rushing yards, had the more efficient run game, but that's not how we saw it, and that's clearly something to see from especially because I think Spencer Rattler added a lot to that as well. And the Saints were also 1-3 in the red zone, including an interception that Spencer Rattler threw as well. Had to settle for a field goal one time, and then obviously the one touchdown is, I believe, 20 yards out was the Spencer Rattler game tying touchdown. So the offense was a little bit iffy, and I'm waiting to see when the offense could turn it on. Our guy Hayden Real told us that the Jaguars defense was not great, played poorly against the Steelers last week, and we were hoping to see something from either of our quarterbacks this week, and we didn't really get to see it. I do want to compare something a little bit before we go to quarterbacks. Is Tyler Shuck did lead one scoring drive, ended up having to be a 51-yard field goal, so make do with what you want about having to be 51-yard. Spencer Rattler's game had 3 scoring drives.
If Chris Olave caught that ball, we're probably talking about a very different situation from that. But I really did like what Rattler did. I mean, he could have had another one if he didn't throw an interception. But we'll talk about this later, but I don't think that was fully on him. But you'd like to see it. It was a very similar game to what we saw last time. It was weird, like uncannily similar.
I think we'll be. I'm sorry, I'm cutting you off. I think we'll be getting the quarterbacks in a second, but I've been seeing a lot about that. If Chris Olave didn't drop that ball, and I mean, very much that is true because that would have kept the drive going. Do we see another field goal there? Because that was the field goal. That was a 51-yard field goal. Do we see the Saints ended up having to settle for a field goal? I will be a little more skeptic there, and I'll say you just have to live with what the outcome is. So yes, it's not exactly on Tyler Shuck that Chris Olave dropped the ball, but it was a 3rd and long attempt that Shuck hit Rattler out. You kind of don't want to be on that ordeal where one incompletion ruins your drive for you anyways. So I will be the critical one there and be like, yes, I probably agree that could have been a touchdown drive, but with the base numbers that we have, it wasn't. And now we're at it where I believe Spencer Rattler is now up on scoring drives on this preseason with maybe 1 extra, I believe. But both of these guys have only led to 1 touchdown. I don't think we've seen a rushing touchdown yet. And I think since we're getting close into it, I'm sorry to cut you off, Nick. I think we're getting close into it. We might be heading just right into the quarterback competition. So if you want to go ahead and lead us off with that.
Yeah. I didn't mind what I saw from Tyler Shuck today. I probably would have liked to see a bit more. Had 20 snaps, 9 for 12 for 66 yards, and had that scoring drive that led to the field goal. But also had 3 drives ended punts. So that's kind of where I'm saying I would like to probably have seen a bit more from him, at least get into enemy territory. You could definitely see the panic in the pocket. He did eventually settle in, but I'll cut him some slack there based on the offensive line struggles we were just noting. But he had some really impressive ball placement, especially on that big hook up to Trayton Welch. Put it just to where only Trayton Welch could go up and get it. He did go up and get it. He did end up going out of the game with an injury, but later came back in. But then looking at Spencer Rattler, I know a lot of people have differing views on his performance. 39 snaps, 18 for 24, 199 yards, that touchdown, that interception. Had 5 drives, 3 of them led to points. He was definitely the better quarterback today. I don't think there's any denying that. It was good to see him be more aggressive. We knew that he had to be more aggressive compared to what we saw last week. And he mentioned that after the game today, that was his plan going into the game, is that he wanted to be more aggressive. So it was definitely good to see him letting it fly. He even had a drive where he hit 5 straight passes, so they were letting him rip it out there. That's always good to see that confidence in your quarterback. On that interception, he just kind of telegraphed it. We've seen that from Shuck as well. He did that on his pick 6 last week. But just like last week, Kellen Moore has stressed the quarterback's abilities to be able to respond to adversity. Tyler Shuck did it with the pick 6, and Spencer Rattler did it today after throwing that interception. So it's good to see that the message that Kellen Moore is relaying to these quarterbacks is working, and seems to be a healthy relationship between them. I know when we're talking about does this performance make one of the quarterbacks separate themselves? No, I don't think so. I think this comes down to the third game. Spencer Rattler, to me, I think he still has that edge. I know a lot of people are going to mention the fact that Tyler Shuck, being a rookie and still coming in there and putting up nearly identical numbers through 2 weeks. I know Kyle put some stats out on their performances over the past 2 weeks, and they're nearly identical. And I know some people think that Shuck being a rookie doing that compared to a guy who already has a year under his belt is and leans towards Shuck in his favor. But in my opinion, I feel like Spencer Rattler just has more control of the offense right now. I think he looks more comfortable in the pocket. And I honestly think just based on the trends that we've seen of who's taking first team snaps in practice, that the quarterbacks feel the same. Or that the coaches feel the same, excuse me.
Yeah, and I'm in complete agreement. I mean, I want to bring you, Kyle, in just real quick if you want to say those stats before I continue, because I have other stats I want to say.
Yeah, so the stats between both quarterbacks through 2 weeks: Tyler Shuck, 24 of 34, 231 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Rattler, 25, 35, 252 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception.
I mean, it's as close as you could get. And I have the win both quarterbacks were QB1 also comparing the 2 games. So Shuck was 9 for 12 first against the Jags, 66 yards, had 4 drives, 3 punts, like you said, was sacked twice. Spencer Rattler, 7 completed passes, 53 yards, 3 punts, 3 sacks. Spencer Rattler didn't have a scoring drive. Tyler Shuck had a scoring drive. I mean, and both had passes that drop passes, issues with the offensive line. Like this battle is so close. It's shocking, honestly. I think my perspective is a little bit different from Nick's. Do I think Spencer Rattler outplayed Shuck this game? Yes, there's no doubt. And I also agree that the needle was not moved here. It is still a tie. But I don't think this quarterback decision should go into week 3 still. In my opinion, there's no reason a quarterback decision should be made off of 1 game now. Because right now it's basically like you're going into week 1 of the preseason. It's that close, that tied. There's no way to. I was saying Shuck was ahead. It's too close now. I think you name Shuck the starter. I think you go into week 3 with Shuck the starter. Go if it's so close, you go with the young player, and that's it. Because going off of 1 game scares me. People are talking about. I've seen a lot. Spencer Rattler's QB1 because of the last drive. That's a little bit of recency bias for me. That's a little bit, okay, it's a 2-minute drive. They were playing off of Rattler the same thing we said with Shuck with the 2-minute drive. And yes, this one ended in a touchdown. And yes, he got the 2-point conversion. I praise Rattler for that. But that doesn't win anything for me. And I still think if it's a tie going to week 3, there's too many benefits to just not choose Shuck now.
This quarterback battle may not be perfect, but man, it's fun to watch. I can't really remember a battle this evenly matched. I mean, Shuck pulls up ahead last week, Rattler ties it back up. It's been like that, this and back forth every single time. And it's been great. I completely agree with you. I do think that Rattler 100% closed it in today, but I don't think any one of them has the lead right now. I do think that they should wait to name it until after the week 3 preseason game. But that's just personally. I don't think next week will define it, but I think it will assure them on which one to do. I think they're going to have a choice in their head before the game. They're not going to publicly say it, but if that quarterback even ties it, I think they'll give it to him. So I think next week still will be telling. I think they're going to have an idea of who they want going into it, but I think that's really going to be decided next week.
And for me, I'm going to actually disagree with you guys because, I mean, just from what I watched, from physically watching, I think Spencer Rattler was the most decisive we've seen of any of the quarterbacks. He made the best decisions. And on that interception, Kellen Moore, Spencer Rattler, and then Mason Tipton all came in the press conference. Basically said Spencer Rattler made the right throw. He threw the ball where Mason Tipton should have been, and then Mason Tipton took the blame, was like, I should have been here. I ran the route wrong. It shouldn't have been this. So from what we saw, we thought it was a bad play, predetermined pass. It was supposed to be a quick slant. So, I mean, kind of that is your one read there. You hit that ball quickly, and Tipton should have been where Tipton was, and he just wasn't, and that's how the interception happened. It still was an interception, and I don't want to take away from that. But I think Rattler looked the most decisive. He looked decisive, the most decisive that we've seen anyone all week. And I understand the idea of, hey, let's go with the rookie over the second-year player and when it's this close of a battle. But to me, there's an idea out there that Spencer Rattler wasn't a rookie 8 months ago. Spencer Rattler is just as young as Tyler Shuck, we're being honest, another guy that's going through it. If he's playing better than Tyler Shuck, he should get the job. I don't think there's let's give it to him because he was our 40th overall pick. I think if he is playing better or if it's close enough and Rattler has a slight edge, Rattler should get the job. He looked the most decisive. He made plays with his legs. He has crazy arm talent that I feel like people are kind of looking over, and we saw it because I don't know if anyone else saw it or anybody's took note of it. Spencer Rattler was running to the right through a crossbody dart, hit Michael Jacobson in the numbers. Michael Jacobson sadly dropped the ball, but that was one hell of a throw. That's like a throw. And Rattler has that arm talent. We saw it last year, and we're seeing it a little bit now. Yes, week one, he was a little more take what the defense gives you, and it wasn't exciting. But we got to see a lot more from him this week, and it was more exciting, and he made the plays. And then the 2-minute drill to tie the game up. That's impressive to me. It's something. Now, I'm not saying Rattler's my pick to be the quarterback. I'm saying in just disagreements, I think if it's a close battle but Rattler has this slight lead, Rattler's the quarterback.
Yeah, and I don't disagree with you. Like, if Rattler has the lead in the coaches' minds, I think no matter what, a quarterback should be named for Game 3. Like, I know my pick is Shuck for my reasons, but if the coaches think, look, Spencer Rattler is the quarterback, I don't think they should rely on Game 3. I know people are saying, oh, it's the tiebreaker, but it's also unfair to the other quarterback because who do you start? If you start Rattler, okay, he struggles and Shuck does well with the backups. That's against the backup defense also. You're in the same issue that you were Game 1, that you were trying to see in Game 2. If you do vice versa, it's the same issue. You don't have a fourth game. If there's a fourth game, then I would say to do this. Yes. And then maybe you go into Game 4. But there's only 3. And that's my issue. But if the coaches think Spencer Rattler's the guy, you go with Spencer Rattler. Or not even the guy. But if he has the lead, you go with Spencer Rattler. I understand that. I just think that Shuck, yes, you say last year, look, Rattler was just a rookie. Rattler did have the second-year offseason to prepare, though. Get better, improve. Shuck did not. Shuck had to deal with all the draft process, which he probably had an insane amount of interviews, just like Rattler. My thing is, if I'm seeing the same exact things as Shuck, and again, this is my opinion, if the quarterbacks are tied, if I'm seeing the same exact things as Shuck and Spencer Rattler, same things from both quarterbacks, basically identical, I'm going to go with the second-round pick over the fifth-round pick, probably 10 times out of 10. And that is with a coaching staff that also chose their guy. That's kind of where I'm just looking at it. But, like, again, if Spencer Rattler has the lead, you choose him. I just think it should be before this game. And
for me, it's just the during the play stuff. Because, actually, I loved what I saw during Tyler Shuck's first pass attempt. That might have been the most decisive I've ever seen him. He went through all of his progressions real quickly. I don't remember who he hit, but he hit somebody on a curl route. Got about 5-6 yards. And I mean, that was it for that drive. But he was decisive, went through all of his. And if we saw that from Tyler Shuck as much as we see that from Spencer Rattler, Tyler Shuck would be my obvious pick. But I don't think we see that from Tyler Shuck just as enough yet. I think he has the most talented arm out of the two, even though I do think Spencer Rattler has an insanely talented arm as well. But but I need to see the decision making, and maybe some of that will come with reps and over time, but that's reps that you can be getting during practices. And we're going into week 1, and if I think Spencer Rattler is going to be able to break down the defense the best and make these plays the best, it's a Spencer Rattler thing. And so far, that's what I'm seeing, is I think Spencer Rattler can dissect the defense a little bit better and do all these things, because he did lead longer scoring drives, which I don't know if you guys remember last episode. I was like, what I want to see is these guys lead these drives where, they don't have to throw a touchdown, but it's not just boom, big touchdown. You know what I'm saying? It's get to the red zone and get have a chance to score there or rush it in or something like that. I saw more of that from Spencer Rattler today, but obviously we had that interception that took away from one, and then we had the touchdown drive, but that's a 2-minute drill that I kind of took away from Shuck last week. So, but I saw more of that from Rattler. And when it comes to scoring, you're 9 times out of 10, you're going to have more of those than you are going to have big touchdowns. So, again, I don't have a pick right now. Honestly, my whole thing is it is too close to call. Good luck, Kellen Moore. I don't know who this is. You have to make the decision. I don't. I'm glad, but I don't have a pick. But I do think Spencer Rattler has been better dissecting defenses and taking what the defense gives him and taking his shots when needed.
And he was great this game. Like that's the thing. He was great this game, just as Tyler Shuck was last game when he had the opportunities, minus the horrible pick, but the better touchdown probably. That's the thing. Shuck had the better touchdown than maybe comparing this 2-minute drive, but Shuck had the way worse interception comparing this to Mason Tipton was probably at fault for that. So, I mean, when like as you said, I don't know how Kellen Moore is going to make this decision. And if it's just down to like, okay, we chose our guy in the 40th pick, then that's what it is. But as he said, he's gonna have the team rally behind whoever. But the team might be leaning towards Rattler right now because he just made this exciting drive and vibes.
Yeah.
So there's so many different things to consider. This game muddied everything. There's nothing. The needle was not moved, and honestly, it probably went even more in the middle than before, for me at least. But it's just I don't know how they're gonna make it.
And if there was one thing we were right on, it's that Jake Hayner's no longer in the battle anymore. It's just them two now. We expected Spencer Rattler for his final drive to be the one before the game-tying drive. And we expected Jake Hayner to come in the game, and that just wasn't the case. I think they've narrowed their decision down to the final two.
Yeah, and for me, I mean, again, we kind of always – that's something that we always were like, we knew. And, I'm honestly glad to see Kellen Moore go ahead and do it. We know this isn't Jake Hayner's. He's had like 5 minutes of preseason time at this point. And it's just, I don't want to say I'm glad he's out of it, but I'm glad they're taking this time to really value all of their guys that they're, I guess, serious about. I know Hayner was in this battle, and Kellen Moore said he was serious about it. But at the end of the day, we all kind of knew this is a Rattler and Shuck battle, and that's what we've seen so far. Now, next week is going to be interesting because are you going to do the same thing over and over again and just not give Hayner any snaps? Because then at that point, this week 3 battle is usually that type of one where you have most of your backups in. You really just see who's flesh out the depth chart. Are we going to really go into week 3 and not have this idea at this point? Because I know we're saying, like, one thing that you say, Caleb, is you don't want one game to dictate this whole thing. But before Tyler Shuck had a good week 1 preseason game, this was, in our eyes, Spencer Rattler's battle to lose. So it went from that to Tyler Shuck made it even. And then now Spencer Rattler, does he make it even again? Or is this his lead? We don't know. And now it's like, what do we do for preseason week 3 when we have – now we have to finish our roster. This is going to be our 53-man roster. We have to cut it down. And who is going to start? Because do you just go back to Rattler to start, as in just continue with the rotation? Do you mentally pick a guy, see if he can handle it? And if he does, like it is an impossible. This is an impossible task. 2 really talented young guys who, to me, both have really high ceilings, both really low floors as well. We've seen it from both of them already. It's an impossible decision, and I don't know how they make it, but I agree with you that this has to be made by preseason week 3. Like, this has to be made next week, and I don't know if they do it. I don't know how they could do it.
A hilarious outcome is starting Jake Hayner, giving Tyler Shuck the 3rd quarter and Spencer Rattler the 4th quarter, and just see what happens. Like, that would just be – honestly, that's the most even I could see it be like it's the most even. It's backups versus backups, but they should never do that. That is a horrible idea. But also, like, if they name whoever's going to start, doesn't that kind of show their cards a little?
That's
Like, isn't that a little bit of a, hey, this is the guy we think is ahead. He needs to prove it though. That's like, I don't know. That's why I'm like, you can't go into this game with and Kyler Moore said so many times that he wants a kind of the quarterback decision to be made earlier, but he's also not going to push it. I don't know how they do this. This is insane. I didn't think it was going to be this close.
All right. I think that's a wrap up of quarterbacks for now, because we're doing a whole lot of I don't know, to be honest. And that's the truth of it, is that is this quarterback competition. We don't know. I can't tell you. These guys are insanely talented, but it's right there, and we can't give you an answer. Before we do move on to other guys that actually stuck out this game, does anybody want to maybe add one more thing to the quarterback competition that y'all think is notable? All right. Well, then let's go right into it. I think I'm going to start. My who I want to talk about here, I really want to talk about Jonas Sanker, so I'm gonna get Jonas Sanker in. I'm sorry, my notes are flooded right now, so I couldn't find it. Jonas Sanker, I really liked his game early on in his game. He played really well. What made me really catch my eye on him is he had a big third down stop where him and this guy absolutely met in the middle, and he laid him out. It was a big hit by him, one of those type of hits, and it made them short of the first down line. Of course, they did convert the 4th and 1 conversion right after, but it was a big play by him. And then Jonas Sanker would end up ending the game 5 tackles, 5 solo tackles, so all of his tackles unassisted. He had 1 pass deflect and then 1 interception, and that interception, obviously the game sealing interception, not exactly his play. It was kind of tip drill situation there, and he took it, and he probably could have gone out of bounds to give the Saints a chance to kick a field goal or so, but it's preseason, I guess just go out there and have fun, man. But I think he played well, and we talked a little bit about him last week because he had a nice pass defense against honestly, I'm not going to remember, but he had a good play to kind of end the game again there as well. And he's looked good over these last 2 weeks. And he's a guy that Nick Underhill, New Orleans Football's Nick Underhill, he's like, the Saints might really have something with Jonas Sanker. He's been saying that while watching these practices. Obviously, we don't get to see all of that, but we got to see it on the field today. And yeah, he felt like he was everywhere. He was able to tackle, and that's what he's known for, is his tackle ability. He's somebody who I think is going to get a lot of early playing time on the special teams. But in coverage, he seemed to have been holding his own. He's doing well. And for me, I think Jonas Sanker could eventually, because Julian Blackmon's on a 1-year deal. How much playing time does Jonas Sanker get? And does he get any time in the slot? And then depending on how he plays this year, Julian Blackmon, who's a guy who's played really well in camp, might not get brought back depending on how well Jonas Sanker plays.
Yeah, Julian Blackmon, real quick on him, he's been outstanding this week. He actually had 3 straight days with an interception at training camp. One of those days was against the Rams as well. So it's really good to see that move panning out well so far. And yeah, it looks like the Saints really have found a gem in Jonas Sanker. And speaking on defensive gems, the Saints' young linebacker room has really, really stood out to me this preseason. Not the guys we may have thought. Obviously, we were really high on Nephi Sewell coming into the preseason. Haven't really heard his name too much. But guys like Danny Stutzman has just been exceeding expectations, had a really nice series in the first half, ended it with a PBU. Isaiah Stallbird, another great game out of him. Speed just continues to show out. And he was a beast on special teams as well, so that could be a path for him to make the roster as well. And then Jalen Ford, a guy we've been waiting on a breakout game from, second-year guy out of Texas, showed his athleticism on that jump of an interception. Really impressive play there. He's also had a strong camp, so it's good to see him having a strong preseason as well. If he can keep this momentum, which looks to be trending in the right direction, we could be possibly seeing a breakout year for him as well. I know for the past couple of years, we haven't been really confident in the depth at linebacker behind Demario Davis and Pete Werner, and it has been an area of concern. At this point, I don't think we would have expected to be saying it, but it might be one of the Saints' strengths on the roster.
Yeah, it's crazy that both safety and linebacker just feel like, as you said, kind of the strengths of the roster. I mean, it's looking like, I know Shuck is going to always be the headliner of this draft, but this past 2025 draft class is looking to be really good right now. Jonas Sanker, Danny Stutzman, you talked about. Kelvin Banks didn't have a bad game. I think he was against, I don't know his name, Allen. Edge rusher.
Hines
What's his first name?
Josh Hines.
Josh Allen. Thank you. He was against him when the starting defense the Jaguars were playing. I saw him in some games, or in some plays. So like, this class is looking really good. I'm actually going to go on the other side of the ball, away from defense, and go on offense. I kind of mentioned it and hinted at it before, how bad the run blocking was, but I actually really liked what I saw from Kendre Miller and Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Kendre Miller I tweeted it early in the game. Kendre Miller was fighting for his life in the backfield. I mean, he was making 3 tackles missed and gained 1 yard. I mean, it was insane to watch. And when he was breaking plays, it was a hold. And it was just, it was so unlucky for him this game. And I'm like, and he got hit a lot too, and it wasn't limping. That's another thing. He looked healthy, which those were plays he would have been injured on. He got his helmet hit off, which definitely should have been a penalty, but he jumped up and went to the next play. I mean, I loved what I saw from Kendre Miller, and Clyde Edwards-Helaire was a bowling ball. He was hitting people. He wasn't getting tackled. I mean, there was one play that 2 people ran into him, and he just stood there, thought he was out of bounds, and just walked up and then spiked the ball out of bounds. Like, he was amazing. It makes the running back competition so confusing, because you're going to keep Devin Neal. You're going to probably keep 4 running backs on this roster, which is not a normal thing for Kellen Moore. I like what I saw from Cam Akers, but his blocking is not good enough, and Kendre Miller's blocking is also not good. So you don't want both of them. And then Velus Jones, you can kind of put him at wide receiver. I think it is Alvin Kamara, Kendre Miller, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and Devin Neal, and that's your 4, and that's what it's going to be. I think that's a position battle. Honestly, we could put the rest, because, I mean, Clyde in the past 2 weeks has shown more than, honestly, Kendre Miller, but Kendre Miller's just upside is insane that you need him as the 2.
You go.
It's the running back conversation. You know, we all want to get in on this one. I'll start. I'm gonna cut you guys both off. I'll go. No, I'm kidding. I did just want to say, I don't know if I can agree with you about Clyde looking better than Kendre over the last couple weeks, but I do really respect how Clyde brought the juice after that one run. Really lit up the game. The sideline was fired up. He was fired up. I just wanted to bring that up, because that is something these preseason games, a lot of these guys are fighting for their job. It's awesome to see it when he brings that juice and, kind of get everybody lit up.
Give Kendre some help. I mean, what can he do for this? But it's been so refreshing this offseason to see him fully healthy, to see what the Saints drafted early in the 2023 draft, I believe. But he's been finally healthy, and he looks dynamic. I cannot wait to see him in the season. Hopefully he stays healthy, and I think he could be a difference maker for the Saints this year.
And I do agree with you, Caleb, that I think it's safe to say that this running back competition is probably put to rest at this point. Just being able to see Kendre Miller having put everything together like we knew we saw during camp, that really is an inspiring sign for the depth behind Alvin Kamara. And I think it's 100% certain that he is going to be the running back 2 for this football team. And Clyde Edwards-Helaire, another guy who I think has really locked himself a role as that running back 3. Just his pass blocking abilities, his energy, the emotion that he plays with. That's all very valuable. He's a 2-time Super Bowl champion, so he brings a lot to that room. And I just don't know if I've seen quite enough from Cam Akers and Marcus Yarns. Marcus Yarns is a guy I definitely expect to be back on the practice squad. Like, I would be completely shocked if he isn't brought back on the practice squad. And Cam Akers, I wouldn't be shocked if he's picked up relatively quickly if he does not make the roster. So it's a crowded room, but I think those 3 have just stood out.
And I would love, re-signing Clyde Edwards-Helaire to a cheap, 3-year deal after. He's still 26. Doesn't feel like Clyde Edwards-Helaire is 26, but he still is 26. Just sign him to a cheap 3-year deal, and he's going to play winning football no matter what. You have your 3. Sorry, that's a loud bang. You have your 3 running backs kind of set, and obviously Devin Neal. Drew knows, yes, we're going to support Devin Neal, but the injury, you don't cut him this year. Never do that. Next year's a little bit different, but I think for the long term, you have a 3 running back plan until Alvin Kamara retires, and I think this game showed it.
And one of the things I'm most excited for is to see a healthy Kendre Miller running behind Eric McCoy, Trevor Penning, hopefully if Trevor Penning at left guard, because if Trevor Penning can do something right, that's block as a runner, block in the run game. So I would love, and I can't wait to see Kendre Miller out. Hopefully week 1, we know Trevor Penning's dealing with turf toe, and we don't know if he'll be back week 1. It said he'll be out a while. But when we finally do get that healthy front in front of Kendre Miller, and he's doesn't have, second team blocking for him stuff, because I do believe our first team offensive line is significantly better, especially when Eric McCoy is out there. He kind of anchors the whole thing. I'm excited to see Kendre Miller be able to do that. I know when we talk about this running back room, this might be the highest we've ever been on Kendre Miller, to be honest, because we have to. Because at this point, this is Kendre Miller's almost last chance. He might become a trade candidate if he doesn't succeed the season or something like that, or even possible cut candidate. So Kendre Miller has to be good this season. He has to stay healthy, and this is his last chance. But I think he's by far behind Alvin Kamara, the most electric and most talented running back in that room. And I can't wait to see him play. And hopefully we'll get to see him week 1 behind the obviously a healthy offensive line, because we saw what he could do this week. Again, only averaged 3.5 yards a run, but he was getting met 2 yards behind the line of scrimmage on every single run.
We can talk about running backs but for my standout player, I'm going, may sound like a broken record, but I'm going Mason Tipton. If he hadn't already secured his spot on the roster, it's over this week. Sheath the sword. He's got that on lock. I mean, I believe he had 6 receptions for 100 yards. He was outstanding, especially on that final 2-minute drive with Rattler. Connections to him to it, like, super easily. He almost had a touchdown pass. He got past the corner in the end zone. Rattler just overthrew it a little bit. But you love what you see out of Mason Tipton. He's really stepped into that wide receiver 4 role, I believe. And I'm excited to see if he can build upon that or build upon his momentum into the season.
Yeah, Mason Tipton had another huge hiccup with Spencer Rattler. We saw him have that huge hiccup with Tyler Shuck last week. So he's clearly got a chemistry with both of these quarterbacks. He also had a 40-plus yard pass interference that he drew on the Jaguars as well that set the Saints up in good position as well. So he's just been impressive in every way. Kellen Moore said they just think the world of him, and he's progressing in an awesome way. So it's really encouraging to see him finally be able to show why the Saints were so high on him last season after he suffered that unfortunate hamstring injury, because I have no doubt in my mind he would have done the same thing he's doing last year if he was healthy enough to do so. He's just a special player, and I can't wait to see what he does in 2025.
Yeah, and I don't remember what drive it was. It might have been the last drive, but there was a pass to Mason Tipton in the edge zone that if Spencer Rattler put that on target, that would, because Mason Tipton did really well, because there's no such thing as offensive pass interference in this league. So push off the cornerback and get open. That's what Mason Tipton did. And if it was on target, it would have been a touchdown. It was a little bit out of bounds, so Mason Tipton couldn't get there. But that's another great play by him to create something. And there was don't know if it was mentioned yet. Sorry if it was, pass interference earlier in the game where Spencer Rattler threw it up. It was underthrown, one of my biggest gripes in the league, but that's another story. Underthrown, and Mason Tipton was fighting for the ball, trying to get it, and it was a pass interference. And it turned into I think a field goal. So that was another big play. I was just looking at Twitter, and per Jeff Duncan, Mason Tipton's actually the NFL's second leading receiver after 2 weeks of the preseason. So, I mean, there's clear talent here. We all think the world of him, just like Kellen Moore does. He is wide receiver 4 in this roster. We haven't seen Brandon Cooks much, but he's fighting for 3. He's doing everything you want from a backup wide receiver. Obviously, you need to show it in the regular season, but this is everything we wanted to see from him.
Yeah, and I think at this point we have seen Kellen Moore and the Saints offensive coaching staff's big body wide receiver be damned. Because, all these guys that are standout, everything like that, under 6 foot. I'm waiting actually to see when they roll out with Chris Olave, Rashid Shaheed, Brandon Cooks, and Mason Tipton 4 wide, and just have everybody go streaks and see, do a little race and fun. But realistically, I mean, these guys have all showed it. Actually, now that you guys mentioned it, because I kind of want to talk about wide receivers as well, because early throughout the drives that Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed were playing, we saw quite a bit of middle of the field receptions. throughout the preseason. I just want to mention that because that's one thing that we know that the Saints don't have that presence, is that middle of the field presence. We saw it from Rashid Shaheed. We saw it from Chris Olave. To be fair, I probably don't want to see that in preseason, if I'm being honest with you. We could save that for the regular season. I don't want these guys to take any unnecessary hits, but we did get to see a little bit of Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed running through the middle, catching the ball, and even Chris Olave protected himself a couple times on those receptions as well. It's, again, just another thing with these wide receivers that I wanted to mention is we're seeing a little bit of that when we know the Saints don't have maybe the mold of wide receiver for it.
And there was it was wonderful to see because they're clearly writing plays up for Rashid Shaheed and Chris Olave. Like, they're designing plays to get these wide receivers touches, which has been the main thing that we were excited for Kellen Moore, was that Kellen Moore knows the best players. He's going to take advantage of the best players. It was great. The Chris Olave screen pass, never do that again. Don't like that. That was scary. That was a scary, could have been injury. Didn't like that. But Rashid Shaheed, there was design plays for him. One of my biggest things with Tyler Shuck, one of my favorite things with Tyler Shuck is that he could put the ball perfectly so the player can make yards after catch every time. There was Rashid Shaheed was running across the field and it was just perfectly placed. Like, it really feels like the coaching staff is using these wide receivers in the perfect way, besides that screen pass. And that was definitely something we also saw.
Yeah, and that was actually a great point you made, Kyle, regarding the over-the-middle usage of Rashid Shaheed. It's clear he's put on some muscle this offseason. You could tell that just by looking at him, and for him to be able to put it to use in a game is definitely good to see. I also like seeing Chris Olave go down. Finally taking some notes from guys like Tyler Lockett, who have been great at that throughout his career. And good at avoiding injuries after figuring out how to do that as well. And a guy who's also dealt with a lot of concussion issues in that wide receiver room is Brandon Cooks. And he's been in the league for quite some time now. So maybe that presence helped Olave understand the significance of avoiding those scary hits. And I was going to say something else on what Caleb said, but I blanked. So I'll just kind of leave it to y'all.
Yeah, and I'm looking over, just trying to make sure there's no more noticeable stats that we see we've missed. Dante Pettis is one that obviously he had the game tying touchdown. He had a touchdown that led to the time. Yeah, you get the point. But he ended the day with 4 receptions and 57 yards. Pretty good game by him as well. He's another one of those guys when you think about like Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who are a guy who you Saints usually bring on a 1-year deal, but always finds his way back on the roster to futures and things like that. Dante Pettis is another one of those guys where the Saints always seem to go after and bring him back for another year. Obviously, a different coaching staff here, but he found his way back on the roster again. And he probably had a rough start to the game. I wouldn't fully put it on him. I know that he had a drop from Spencer Rattler, but I think Pettis was sitting in his zone and Rattler kind of sailed it a little bit, forcing Pettis to have to jump instead of be in his spot. But he had maybe a little rough start to his game, but he really fleshed out 57 yards. Like I said, the touchdown and 4 receptions, pretty good for a Saints wide receiver room that is pretty depleted right now. Bub Means went down. Pettis is a little bit bigger, I believe. Honestly, I don't have his measurables right here, but I know he's a little bit larger. I know he's definitely not. I think
he's like 6'1".
Yeah, so he's got a little bit of that what the Saints need in terms of a mold for a wide receiver that can do it. Pettis is a guy that's always found his way back to the roster and ended the day with a decent stat line. All right, but with that being said, I think we hit on every stat line that we could, all the guys that stood out this game, the quarterback competition. The Saints are now 0-1-1 to go into preseason week 3. Honestly, I hope they win next week, so we got the 1-1-1 stat line to end it. But that's going to be it for this episode. Make sure you guys tune in with us on Friday, I believe. Yeah, Friday, so we could preview Saints versus Broncos, which... Ooh, that's Saturday. Actually, I'm sorry. Okay, preview with us. One of these days, the episode's going to go. We're going to figure it out, all right? The Saints versus play the Broncos next Saturday. We'll get that episode up. Make sure you guys tune in as we talk over that one. And that's it for this episode.